Clint Cosgrove, Rivals national recruiting analyst, here with another one of our national recruiting analysts. We've got Eric Lammers, based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Obviously, you have some history in Nashville. You've worked there on the college coaching side of things, Eric. But I'm excited to do this podcast that we're going to call Coach's Corner, a couple of old washed up coaches giving our views on the coaching world and maybe a different perspective. I know neither of us come from the media side, but we are on the media side now. I think one of the things that helps us with is we can share knowledge from the other side of things that maybe some of our other counterparts have not lived and experienced, just as they share with us how to write and how to attack this side of the business. But Eric, just tell me about your background in coaching, what experience you have. And I would just love to learn more about that, as I'm sure our listeners would.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, I'm happy to be on here with you, Clint. I mean, this is one of those projects, that we kind of took on, and I'm very excited to be able to do this with you because I think, like you said, it gives us an opportunity to kind of, just get on here and talk football. And that's, obviously what we're really good at. We've made a living out of that, obviously, but like you touched on too, we're not from the media side, really. Our backgrounds are coming from more of the football, coaching and personnel side of things. And I've had a lot of things to learn, coming to work for Rivals and doing all of this. You touch my history and what I've done in the past is, I was a former high school coach in Ohio, coached high school running backs and safeties. And somehow in 2012, I made my way to Nashville, Tennessee, and started working as a recruiting volunteer assistant for Coach James Franklin when he was down here with Vanderbilt Commodores. And it was a great experience. I had a chance to work with him. I had no idea really what I was getting myself into. My experience with college football recruiting to that date was message boards and recruiting teams for college football on PlayStation, right? So that's what was kind of my background when it came to all of that. So, but yeah, so then I got down there to work with Coach Franklin. It was a great couple of years. Obviously, I learned a lot. I really learned what it meant to grind in the industry, right? Because he's one of those coaches that, man, he knows a lot. He's very passionate about recruiting, and he was able to teach me a lot in those early stages when I was young. And when he had the changeover, when he left and went to Penn State, and Vanderbilt ended up hiring Derek Mason from Stanford, it was kind of one of those early moments for me in my career. I didn't really know what was going to happen before it even really got started, right? How was I, what did it mean for me? Was I going to go to Penn State? Was I going to go to stay at Vanderbilt, or was I going to be done? And Coach Mason gave me a chance to stay on with him. And ultimately what ended up happening was I rose to his director of recruiting. And so had a chance to do some really good things there in the SEC, worked for Vanderbilt. We were there until, not last season, but the season before that. Met a lot of great people, learned a lot of good things. And so I had a chance then when it was all said and done to come and work for Rivals. And I thought I knew what was happening on this side of the industry, right? When you're in that personnel department, you're talking to these guys on this side that work for Rivals, and you're talking about recruits, and you're talking about what they're hearing and this and that. Only though to come onto this side and realize I have no clue what it took to be on this side, right? Like I really have no clue, or had no clue, the amount of work and the hours and things like that. We always talk about, me and you go back and forth all the time about the hours that we worked in college football, right? And they're a lot, and it's a grind, and you really have to love it. But it's one of the most unique jobs out there, right? I mean, literally, you're going to football practice at points during the day. You can work out during the day. You can go play basketball with the rest of the staff during the day. But then at other times, you're going to be grinding, right? Here, it's just a whole different job, and there's a level of unpredictability that comes with it all. So it's been a great eye-opening experience. I'm excited to be on this side, but I am really excited to be doing this with you because I'm excited about where we're going to take this. And I know that you, like me, have a background, so I'm looking forward to learning more about that as well.
Yeah. So mine, similar to yours, I was on the college football coaching, recruiting, all that side for a long time. I grew up in it. My dad still is a football coach. When I grew up, I was born in Champaign, Illinois. He was the linebackers coach for Mike White, for those that go way back in the day, way back. I mean, geez, I was born in 82. So, but he was like 25 years old coaching linebackers in the Rose Bowl for Illinois. And I was one of those kids that I couldn't get enough. I was begging my mom to take me to practice at the age of 4 every day. I was drawing up plays. paying attention to the games, getting mad if they didn't run my plays that didn't even have enough players on the field or made no sense. But I would still pick up on those things. But I went on to play for a little bit, had a lot of shoulder injuries. So then I transferred to Arizona State, but knew that I was always going to get back into coaching. And then I got back in right when I graduated, and I started out as a quality control at University of Nebraska under Bill Callahan. It was quite the experience, doing game plans, being in the press box on game day, doing coverage adjustments, tracking trends, all of those things. So I did that for a little bit. Then I went up to University of Minnesota, started out as a graduate assistant, then, kind of worked my way into, coaching with the secondary. I was there for 3 years under Tim Brewster, learned a lot there. I was in charge of recruiting specialists. We had a little conversation about specialists as well. And then after my time there, I went on to Dartmouth, where I coached nickels and outside linebackers. Very different experience in the terms of I wasn't walking into 100,000 seat stadiums every week. It was more about the love of the game. And I absolutely loved coaching in the Ivy League. Now, you talk about time commitment, football at D3 to D1, it doesn't matter what it is. It's a grind. You're in the office, you're getting after it. But, just through my time coaching and my dad's network, my network, got to know a lot of people in the industry, got a great understanding of coaching. I was at the Division I level for, I think, almost 8 years. And that's what I lived. And then when I got out of coaching, I got into scouting. And I did that for another 8 years, where we were paid by college football teams to identify, evaluate, and gather information to basically be that first step in the recruiting process. So when coaches go on the road, they're not just pounding the pavement and looking for players. And, that first part of the evaluation that can take a lot of time was done. So I got to see it from the coaching side and then the scouting side, and now here on the media side. And like you said, I had no clue what, I thought I knew. I had no clue what goes into this. I was used to recruiting, so I was trying to get players to come and play for me. Now it's more about, getting that information, trying to break news, creating trust within that, that player network, and really sharing their story. And it is a nonstop thing.
Nonstop for sure.
Nonstop, man. It never ends. So, my goal, at least with this podcast, is to share kind of what we learned on the football side of things, because people, a lot of the time, the only thing that they know about this recruiting game is what they read on rivals.com or what they see on the message boards and the media. And so hopefully give a little glimpse of what really goes on the other side, the side that the public does not see, and the side that really is kind of kept a secret from the public in certain ways. When I think of recruiting, I think it can get so confusing for the kids because the coaches, they only see it from their side of view, their point of view. They know what their job is to recruit kids, to get them to come on campus. But they don't realize if they give an offer to a kid and then they don't talk to him for 6 months and the kid doesn't have any other offers and he thinks he's committing on signing day, all of a sudden he doesn't have a place to go. So that's just one of the many topics that I think that we can touch on. But I think we both have a lot of great ideas about what we want to do with this, from, having coaches come on and do interviews. What are some of the things that you would like to accomplish, in this podcast, that you would like to share with the audience that maybe that they aren't getting from anything else out there?
Sure. Yeah, you kind of touched on it. There's so many topics out there that I think we can help kind of bridge the gap almost, I guess, between, the college staffs and the recruits. Because, you talked about it right there with the committable offer versus a non-committable offer. How many times have I seen that, whether it's on Twitter or on a message board, about what does that actually mean? What does a camp offer mean versus an actual offer? And why do they do that? Talking about those type of things and diving into those questions just to give some perspective on, from our background and what those all mean, I think can go a long ways. A lot of times when I'm sitting on these message boards and I'm talking to the fans on there, in the community, and they're asking me certain questions about, this commit or that commit, or what does this mean? And a lot of times I don't actually know the actual answer. Like I haven't talked to that kid or I haven't talked to the staff to actually have inside intel. But what I can do is I can look at the scenario as a whole, use my background knowledge to kind of figure out what that scenario means, right? And then kind of give an answer from there. And a lot of times that proves out to be right, because a lot of this is all the same, right? It's just different names, different schools and things like that. But a lot of the scenarios are the same. And so it's just being able to look at it from a 30,000 foot view, kind of using your past experiences and just sharing knowledge. And I think we'll be able to do that because I think, like you said, you touched on with your background. I touched on with my background. I think we have some of those. And I think what's going to be cool is we're going to be able to bring on a lot of great content or a lot of great contacts that we've had or have in the industry, and have them come on and talk to us and have them open up. And, another goal, I want to try and humanize it almost a little bit, humanize the coaches, humanize the prospects. At the end of the day, these are all real people, right? I know we look at them from a star rankings or how much money is that coach making, but in the end, it's all real people. And I really think that there's a lot that we can learn from these people. And one of the things I can't wait to talk to you about it is you grew up in it, man. Like your dad was a coach, so you've experienced it. You've experienced the highs and the lows of this profession. You probably, I don't know how many times you moved or how many times you've experienced a firing or a hiring or anything like that, but I know that happens to families. It was one of the reasons when as I was going through this, and what do I want my kids? Like, how do I want my 3 kids? Do I want to keep moving them and this and that? And so I can't wait to dive in with you a little bit on that and learn about that. So, but yeah, I think there's a lot of great ideas there, and I think we're going to be able to do a lot of cool things.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the reasons I got out of coaching, and there was a lot of them, some personal things like my brother getting cancer, and I'm preparing for a football game, and I'm like, my brother could die and I might not see him again because I'm worried about Penn's offense, and from a life perspective thing, like, how important is that?
Right.
My brother's life versus a football game. And so I met my wife at the time, and I don't know if she was necessarily ready to have me working till midnight every day and being gone every week. But yeah, no, the humanizing aspect I think is very important, because as easy as it is to, on message boards and stuff, rip these, coaches apart and rip us analysts apart, whatever it may be. These are real people with lives, and they're trying their best. And, there's a big impact on the family as well. Like, when my brother was playing, every time he'd catch the ball, the opposing team's fans would start cheering "Fire Cosgrove," So like, I think the humanizing aspect will be very interesting. And as we get college coaches on here, one of the things I would like to talk to them about is that balance between life and family and recruiting. I did that piece recently where I asked, the players what advice they would give coaches on recruiting. And a lot of it was they're contacting them too much. Like, they have lives too. And you can have a great relationship by just touching base maybe once or twice a week and making it meaningful, instead of hitting them up nonstop, overwhelming them and being aggressive. Right. And one of the things we kind of talked to about on the side is, without using names, like I remember talking to coaches that for sophomores who they're not even allowed to contact, reach out to the head coach in their weekly recruiting meeting, would need an update of their communication with that kid from that week. And if they didn't have it, they were getting their butts ripped.
Right.
So, these coaches are trying to balance. They don't want to be overwhelming these kids at the same time, but they're sometimes forced to. And there's so much pressure to land these kids, and there's so much publicity behind it. And we, in our industry at Rivals and stuff like that, we drive that as well. So,
sure. No doubt.
I don't know your thoughts on that, but I do think it'll be very interesting to try to, like you said, humanize that aspect of it and get it from a coach's perspective, as well as a player's perspective. I'd love to get some players on here as well, and maybe do a round table and that sort of thing. So,
no doubt. Obviously these coaches, the head coaches in particular, they become successful for a reason, right? They're very passionate. They're very driven. And I get that. I think a level of paranoia almost creeps in a little bit, because they want to, if we're not hitting this kid, somebody else is, right? And if that means we're losing ground on him. in the end, though, a lot of things are going to come down, beyond that. Like, so, I mean, I don't necessarily know if, like you said, hitting a kid every day is not really doing anything, especially if all you're doing is saying, "Hey, what's going on? How's your day going?" Right? That's not even really building a genuine relationship, in my opinion. And not even the fact that the kids are sophomores is not even really supposed to be being hit anyways, which, again, and we can go off on a tangent here, but that's almost like, it's kind of foolish to me that you can offer a freshman in high school, but then you're not supposed to talk to them for 3 years, right? Or 2.5 years or whatever it is. Like, how's that even make sense? I guess I would love to ask that to the NCAA on some of theirs, because while I know that there's a lot of things that the coaches are doing, and prospects don't necessarily like, and this and that, a lot of it comes down to the calendar that's implemented by the NCAA. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in my opinion, at times. And so we could dive in and have a long, hour-long discussion about that probably too as well. So really, I mean, Clint, the topics are endless, right? So we'll really be able to go pretty much any direction with this, I feel like, every week. So, I mean, again, I'm super excited about
Yeah.
what.
Well, I mean, even you speak of that, I'm sure we could get somebody from the NCAA on here that would love to address some of those things too. I mean, and if we can, I would love to hear their opinion on the NIL and the way that's going and the
Right.
direction they see that going.
Right.
One thing that you had mentioned touching on is this industry has evolved a lot, just as the world has evolved in terms of, diversity and inclusion. And a big part of what we've seen in recruiting personnel, a lot of women taking roles as recruiting people, as directors of on-campus recruiting. And that was your idea. I thought it was brilliant. Maybe having some of those women on to talk about their experience in recruiting, how it's changed, how they're treated in an office full of men that has been what some might say a grounds for really toxic masculinity. You have a bunch of alpha males in there trying to prove who's the man and establish orders. So I think that will be a great topic as well.
You will never see, like, this is my hardest thing sometimes, like going back into the real world, or quote unquote real world, and into a work environment. Like, you will never be in type of a working environment like a college football office, right? Like, when you're, like you said, it's essentially a bunch of alpha males, right? That are, they probably don't want to hear this, but spit and dip, listen to music loud, cuss words are flying. And it's like the ultimate, like, locker room. Essentially, it's like a locker room, right? And so, now you've kind of thrown, women are coming into that. And it's all, I mean, I had a chance at Vanderbilt to work with a lot of really good women that did a lot of great things for us. And so I think bringing them on here to share some of their experiences and share what they're seeing, because they are becoming a very integral part of these departments now. You can't, I don't know if you could go through one college football program, at least in the Power Five, that has a recruiting staff that doesn't have one female on there leading their charge. And Coach Mason loved having the females on our recruiting staff, because he said they could always bring a different aspect to it, right? They could provide a different perspective that the men obviously weren't always going to be able to see. And they were rock stars when it came to communicating with the moms and connecting with the sisters and different things like that. So I mean, it's gonna be awesome to have a couple of them come on and join us and talk to us, because there's just so much there that we could probably unpack with them.
Oh, no question. Because you talk about the dip, spitting, cursing, alpha, pumping the chest in the office, and and the women get to see it firsthand too. I don't know how often it is toned down around them either. But I do think it'll be very interesting, and the perspective that women can bring has definitely changed the recruiting game and ultimately helped it. When my dad was down at LSU in 2019, it was really interesting. They had a lot of women on their recruiting staff, not only from an operations perspective, but interacting with the recruits, with the sisters, with the moms, with the dads, and just kind of bringing that other side of the recruiting aspect. So I think that'll be interesting, bringing players on to, like I said, touch on what they do and don't like about recruiting. And then maybe, contrasting that with coaches, what they do and don't like. And I think there's going to be a lot of crossover of, what the coaches would like to see change and what the players would like to see change. And I don't know how many podcasts are doing that. And I think this is a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, dude, no doubt, man. No, I think that I think we would be, I don't even know if you could say shocked when if you talk to a majority of the college coaches that are in the game and you would talk to them and say, what do you think about this calendar and this? It's just nonstop and it's just crazy. And they try to implement these few dead periods here, right, in between, in February and in July, but realistically, July was really the only month we ever had off at Vanderbilt, right? Because whether or not you're prepping for spring ball or whether or not you're welcoming commits on campus or the coaches are out on the road, I mean, the rest of the 11 months are pretty much all, full guns a-blazing, right? And July was a little bit of time, obviously, for us to dial things back. But even then, you're coming right out of camps. And then some people are having camps at the end of July or, you're getting ready for fall camp. So it's always just nonstop busy. But I think if you would sit down and talk to a majority of these coaches, I think we'll learn that a lot of them would like some type of more structure into the calendar, the yearly calendar that could dial it back. Because, dude, these guys want to spend time with their families. Like, they don't love being away from their families for 12 hours a day for 7 days a week. I think there was one time at Vanderbilt we worked, it was like 164 days in a row or something, right? And so, like, people don't necessarily love that. Like, I mean, you love the game, you love the atmosphere. It's a very addicting career, but people love their families too and want to be with their families. So it's such a fine line. And I really look forward to kind of diving in with, some of these coaches and figuring that all out. And and on the flip side, I do know that there's a few head coaches out there that think there's 25 hours in a day. And if you're not working, right, then and somebody else is, and you're losing ground. And I get that, right? Everybody to each their own. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to hear kind of the different perspectives on that. And hopefully we can get the coaches to kind of, open up a little bit more. Sometimes there's coaches are really known for coach speak, right? They kind of always toe the line. They don't necessarily ever say exactly what they're feeling or, and hopefully we're able to kind of give them an environment. Hopefully, and that kind of goes back to the humanizing part of this all. Give them an open forum. Let's, I don't want to use the word safe space, like, right. We're not like that, but like, we can talk. Let's have a grown men conversation, grown women conversation, grown adult conversation, and talk about college football because we obviously all love it. We're all addicted to it, and let's just talk.
No question. I think it's funny that you touch on the 25 hours in a day, because there are some coaches that there are 25 hours in a day and you're going to work them all. And that's how you get your edge. But then there's others who take a totally different approach where a balanced life is what leads to a successful program. I think of like Coach Fitz at Northwestern. I mean, they practice in the morning so that the guys can be home at night with their families. And they might not be winning Rose Bowls every year, but they also are in kind of a different situation where they get the most out of their talent. I would say they get as much out of their talent as any school out there, and they've had a lot of success as a program. So there's also a lot of different ways to cut it. One term that I always use when coaching is, are we desk guarding or are we getting stuff done? A lot of the times you're afraid to leave the office and you're sitting there doing nothing but taking away from your sleep and your time with your family. So I think it'll definitely be interesting to dive into that, but I'm excited. The topics are endless. So
it's funny you said that though, about desk guarding, because desk guarding is obviously it's a deal in the business, right? But and how you mentioned Fitz, I went up to interview with Fitz, been, I don't know, because it was before probably about in 2014 or something like that, right? I walk in to interview with Fitz. I'm tied up. I'm all suited and booted, right? And he tells me, loosen up that tie, son. This isn't a business interview here. This is we have a fun environment here, and we don't guard our desk around here. And he was awesome, right? He was an awesome dude, and it was awesome to sit down and get to know him. Obviously, I went in a different direction, obviously, but he was a great coach. But the thing about him and his style, he's well respected throughout the industry. Nobody can doubt that.
Yep.
And his staff continuity is one of the best in the industry, right? And that has to mean something, right? When you have staff continuity and you're not having turnover constantly, that's how you build a program like Northwestern, where, okay, you're going to win 8, 9, 10 games every 3-4 years, maybe you're in the Big Ten championship competing for the Rose Bowl. And that is awesome. Right. And you're developing players and you're graduating these dudes. And like, that's what it's all about, in my opinion. Right. And so, like, a lot of people want to do it like Fitz, and maybe he doesn't have the same pressure as some of these other Power 5 programs to compete for national championships and to sign top 5 recruiting classes and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's hard to argue with the results that are coming out of Northwestern. And I think that he does a tremendous job up there, and he preaches a way of, like you said, we're not sitting here guarding our desk. We're going to get our jobs done when we're here. And then when you're done, dude, go be with your family. Go be with some of the most important people in your lives. Do that. And so it's awesome.
Yeah, and he works his butt off too. I mean, he
Right.
lives it. He lives
Exactly.
it. He lives
Exactly.
it. And there's 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 just no one way to win. And so I think one thing that we can do with this podcast is prove that. We can bring the coaches on, we can humanize them, we can bring the recruits on, humanize them. And I really think we can do a really cool thing with this and just give a perspective that isn't out there for fans to see. So I'm really excited about this, Eric. This will be a weekly podcast, I know, moving forward. And the topics are endless, but I look forward to doing it, my man.
Yeah, it's going to be one of my, high points of the week every week, coming on here and talking with you and talking with all the, the coaches and the other people that we're going to bring on, because I tell people often, I come, I sit down. I'm not like the greatest writer in the world, right? Like, let's be honest. In college, when I had a paper due, right, I was the guy that was waiting until the last minute to write that paper and turn it in, right? And so, like,
Same here.
writing comes real natural to me. But like getting on here and talking ball and talking recruiting, and with our guests, what we're gonna, like, topics that we're gonna cover, I think is going to come very natural to both you and I. And I think we're going to do, like I said, we keep talking about it, but I think it's going to be a lot of really impactful conversations and things that are going to be, people are really going to want to tune into, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. So for all of you that want to listen in, this will be Coach's Corner with Eric Lammers and Clint Cosgrove. And, you're going to get a perspective that you don't get anywhere else out there. And for recruits, parents, coaches, I think this is going to be a can't miss segment each week with Rivals. And just can't wait to continue and build on this with you, Eric.
Yep. Let's do it, man.
All right, man. It's been great. Thank you very much.